Hey guys, it's Shelby and it is fall. I'm really excited to be wearing this outfit and that it's actually in the 60s outside my window right now. I'm like so stoked on it. And if you haven't seen my video where I talk about my sustainable fall capsule wardrobe, have a whole video on it if you're wanting to know where I got these goodies. I'll link that video below so you can watch it after this one. But today we're gonna be talking about some more zero waste swaps that no one else talks about. Now I should preface this video by saying I'm not making this series to be like, oh, look at me, I'm the best person in the community and I know about all the swaps that like no one else does. That's not the point. The point of this is that there are plenty of videos out there with the beginner swaps, the swaps that everyone's heard about, the reusable coffee cups, the reusable water bottles. As a matter of fact, I just made a video recently about some basic zero waste swaps, but tried to make it more fun by talking about the Instagram version versus like the real reality, Instagram versus reality version. If I do say so myself, that was a really good video, so I'll link it here in the description if you want to check that out. But the last video I made on this topic, there were two consensus comments in the comment section that I read. Number one is that you guys like these videos, hence why I'm sitting here making another one. I will make this into a series, but I'm gonna need your help, which we'll talk more about at the end, which leads me into number two, the second most left comment I would say on my last video, which was, your intros are too long, hurry the fuck up. So without further ado, let's get into the swaps. Zero waste swap number one that I get asked about that no one seems to talk about are reusable ear cleaners. So Q-tips, if you will, which is actually really interesting because Q-tip is a term that a lot of people refer to like earbud cleaners as, but that's because the first brand who created the little earbud cleaners are called Q-tips, much like, at least in America, I don't know about anywhere else, but in America we call bandages Band-Aids, we call Tupperware containers, like food storage containers, we call them Tupperware, we call nose tissues Kleenexes. Those are all brand names who like basically created those things, so then the name just stuck. And it's the same thing with Q-tips. So the original brand who created Q-tips are made from paper sticks with cotton buds at the end, so they're completely compostable. But these days there are other brands who kind of took that and ran with it, and they're making their sticks out of plastic. But there are a few different products out there that combat this. So number one is a product called Last Swab. They actually have a Kickstarter. If they're already selling, like you can just go and buy it. I'll have it linked below. I'll link the Kickstarter as well, whichever it is. I personally don't own one. I don't clean my ears with those swabs because I've heard rumors that they're not good for you, but I still get asked about these all the time and no one seems to talk about them. So there's Final Swab or Last Swab. It came out really close to Final Straw, so I get them mixed up in my head. And number two, there's also like a metal version of a Q-tip kinda that you can use to clean out your ears. So I'll link that below as well, but no one talks about those. So if you're looking for a reusable version of like basically a cotton Q-tip or even ones that are plastic, because there are also images of seahorses like swimming around with those in their tails, and I honestly can't speak to the validity of those images. I feel like they might be photoshopped, so let me not speak to the validity of those things. But if you are looking for a reusable version of an ear swab, I got you. Quick tidbit here between swap number one and swap number two. If you really like this series of talking about zero waste swaps that people don't talk about very often, make sure you give this video a thumbs up for number one. But number two, if you want to see these videos keep coming and you have ideas for the series, please leave them in the comments, because I have two series or like three series-ish that I do every month on my channel.
The anti-haul series and the I Tried Zero Waste Grocery Shopping series. Those two series are very easy for me to do. There are an endless amount of things to anti-haul in the world that are wasteful, and it's also quite a few grocery stores.
But there is not an endless amount of zero waste swaps, so if you have an idea out there, please let me know what it is. Leave it in the comments. I read all of my comments, so if you ever comment on a video, rest assured I've seen it. I wanted to preface this swap with that because I actually got this one from someone in the comment section. So it is a reusable crystal nail file. Now when I was a kid, my mom had one of these crystal nail files. It's basically just a reusable one that you file your nails with. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, especially if you've seen one before, but I guarantee you if you go to the comments of this video, you're gonna find people who say they didn't know those existed, and vice versa. A lot of people in the last video told me that they didn't know a reusable version of XYZ existed, and other people told me they didn't know a disposable version of XYZ existed. So I'd love to hear if you've ever seen a reusable nail file, or not a reusable nail file, but like one that is like lifelong lasting. Like my mom still has the crystal one that she used when I was a kid, or if you've ever only seen the ones that are like kind of on paper. They're basically like sandpaper attached to a little piece of foam, the disposable ones essentially. I would love to know which one of those you use. I honestly don't use nail files anymore anymore. That's just me personally. But have you ever used a reusable one, like a lifelong reusable version, or the more disposable versions? Let us know in the comments. But if you're looking for a reusable one that can literally last you a lifetime, at least what I've seen from my mom's, I'll have one linked below for you. This next one is not exactly a zero waste swap per se, but it is something you can use to reduce your plastic pollution. This is a microfiber filter, and very few people talk about microfiber filters, so I decided to write a whole blog post of all of the microfiber filters I'm aware of, so you can check the link in the description. But basically what microfiber filters do is catch the plastic fibers that come off of your clothing. So if you didn't know, clothes that are made from polyester shed fibers when you wash them, and polyester is literally plastic. Polyester is literally made from petroleum, so it is a plastic. It will never biodegrade, and those fibers are so small that they're actually making it through our water treatment plants a lot of the times, and a lot of them are making it to our oceans and then moving up the food chain from there. Obviously, solution number one to this is stop buying polyester clothing, but I personally think that's a little bit unrealistic because so much clothing is made from polyester, and when you already narrow down your wardrobe to it being sustainable, and largely my personal wardrobe is secondhand, so to then narrow it down and not being able to wear polyester, I just think that most people are not going to abide by that. So what you can do is put a filter on your water. Well, there's a couple of ways actually that you can put a filter on your water, which is what I am currently working on doing. I recently got a filter that can filter out all the water from my washing machine so that I don't have to put my clothes in a certain kind of bag or use a certain kind of ball. They're all linked in the blog post that I was talking about in the description if you want to read about the different types. And rest assured that I will compare all of them once my filter is completely installed and I understand how to use it. But that's a swap that not many people talk about. So if you are someone who wears polyester clothing and you want to stop contributing to those microfibers getting into our oceans, I have one linked below for you, the one that filters your whole washing machine. I'll leave that link. But I also have a blog post explaining what each of them do and how they work. So check that out if you're in the market for it. That is a swap that very few people talk about, but it's actually really, really important. My frustration is that a lot of these things that are really important are not so in your face, right? Like zero waste has had its moment because it's so blatant. Like the plastic waste is so blatant. We see it in the ocean, we see it on the streets, we see it in our trash. Like we can see that consumption. But smaller things, or not even smaller things, but things that are not so visual, like climate change and plastic microfiber pollution, is not so obvious, so it doesn't get talked about as much. So if you want to learn more about it, like I said, just check out the links in the description. But that's a swap that not many people talk about. All right, this one is one that does not get talked about literally at all, but I get asked all the time, and I kind of understand why no one talks about this because I don't really know what sort of content it would fit into. We're talking about trash bags. Like, who wants to go on Instagram and hold up their bag of trash when like you're trying to be the person to advocate for being less wasteful and be like, this is the trash bag I use? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But for those of you wondering about more eco-friendly versions of trash bags, there are a couple options, but honestly, we'll get into why it's not really all that beneficial. So option number one is a reusable trash bag. There are reusable trash bags out there by a brand called Bagito that they specifically designed them to be for a trash can. And I've talked about them before actually because I use them when I go on hikes or on walks or when I'm camping or whatever to kind of keep trash contained, and then I can bring whatever small amount of trash I produce on a trip back to my trash bags and put them in there. But I do not recommend using reusable trash bags for your trash at home because whenever the dump truck comes to pick up your like large trash can and dump it into the trash, then it can get everywhere. It has a much more likelihood of actually spilling out of the trash truck, getting onto the ground, washing into our storm drains, and making its way into our oceans. Your best bet is to contain your trash rather than worrying about that little thin layer of plastic that could actually make a really big difference in terms of trash getting out into the environment. So that is option number one, but option number two is to use a compostable bag. Now, the complicated part about this is that, yeah, we still produce trash. I'm not here to tell you that I don't produce any trash, so I don't need trash bag. No, let's be realistic here. Not only do I produce trash sometimes, but I live with my sister who is in no way zero waste. So of course we have trash bags, but something to keep in mind is that you can buy a compostable plastic trash bag. Now, in all reality, it's going to landfill and it's not going to have the proper conditions to compost. So that bag is essentially going to be waste regardless. But there are two reasons that using a compostable bag could be better for the environment. Reason number one is if that trash bag does happen to get out of the trash truck, right? God forbid, it gets out and it's like on the side of the road somewhere. Again, it is compostable, but those compostable compostable bags have to have compost conditions to actually break down. But once that bag does start breaking down, it's not going to break down into microplastics like a regular plastic bag would. So that's situation number one where it might be beneficial. And situation number two would be you're supporting a compostable plant-based bag rather than a plastic petroleum-based bag company, right? So the difference in change is minuscule, but those are your options. Obviously, you can also do paper bags, but no one ever talks about trash bags. And I think it's because as people on the internet trying to promote a zero waste lifestyle, it is an awkward and not fun thing to admit that we have trash bags, but also it's not helping anybody by me not telling you what we use. So we do use a compostable bag that I'll have linked below. Again, like I said, this is nothing that's like super beneficial or super important. I don't think it's like very much precautionary, but if you want to get some, then you can find it in the description. This one I'll go through really quickly because there's not a whole lot to say about it other than no one really talks about these. I've talked about them before. I can't remember if I talked about them in my most recent school supplies video, but if I did, go check it out. I'll link it here. But they are highlighters that are not plastic. So essentially it's like a souped up colored pencil, but these colored pencil highlighters have neon colors, and honestly when you use them on paper they look the same as highlighters. It really helps draw your attention to what you would want. Like it works in the same way, but they're made of wood because they're pencils, so they don't have any plastic or ink or any of that stuff like regular highlighters do. If you're someone who finds highlighting really helpful, then you can check these out and I'll have them linked below. There's not a lot to say about them except they're really cool. They work really well, and I don't see very many people talking about them at all, but they are zero waste. Last thing I'll talk about, I get requests to talk about this all the time. I get told that these exist all the time, and I'm like, okay, like I got it. This last one is a reusable Keurig coffee filter. So I guess the reason that I personally don't talk about this a lot, and maybe this is why other people don't talk about them a lot, I don't know. So if you don't know what Keurig is, Keurig is actually like one of the most wasteful things that has been invented like since I've been alive, I think. There are these machines that you have to have individual pods to make a single cup of coffee with, like little plastic cups to make one single cup of coffee. And I think what's really interesting is originally I think the idea was, let me not have to brew an entire pot of coffee when I only want one cup, which in a sense is less wasteful. I was gonna say more eco-friendly, but like less wasteful in terms of coffee that you're having to like throw out. But even the creator of Keurig himself has said that he regrets creating the pod. Not that that stopped the business from growing and existing because profit, but if you didn't know, there are reusable coffee pods out there for Keurig. Now, the reason why I haven't talked about these before is honestly because I thought the appeal of Keurig, like the big appeal of Keurig, was that you could make a single cup of coffee, but that it's like specifically flavored. Like I've seen like donut flavored coffees and caramel macchiatos and all these crazy things, which I know you can't get put into the reusable pod. Does that make sense? Like maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe there is some way to get like that coffee and put it in the reusable pod, but they sell like hundreds of different flavors of coffee, and like you can't get that flavor in the reusable cup. That's why I've never mentioned it, because I just think like those reusable pods are only good for someone who wants a plain cup of coffee. I could be completely wrong because I'm not really a coffee person. Well, I like to treat myself to coffee, but it's not something that I keep in my house. So I don't know anything about Keurig. I don't know how typical people use them or anything like that. So please let me know if you would use the reusable K-cup, or if you knew it existed, or if you think it's worth it. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know anything about Keurig. But I am here to tell you, if you didn't already know and you are someone who would really benefit from swapping those white pods to a reusable coffee pod, then I'll link it below, the reusable coffee filter. I actually found several Keurig coffee machines in dumpsters when I used to dumpster dive a lot, and I even found one of the reusable K-cups once. So they do exist. They're out there. If it's something that you think could help you reduce your waste, I'm happy to tell you that it's out there. Here is the PSA. Alrighty guys, well that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this addition to the series in zero waste swaps no one talks about. If you have any other ideas of zero waste swaps you'd like to see me mention in an upcoming video in this series, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to check the links to all the things I talked about, the blog posts, the videos that I referenced. I talked about a lot of stuff in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye guys.